Hashtag we read 28 days of Black History, 28 days of books for Black History Month. This is day number 6. I am reading a solo tonight. Malia will be back on tomorrow. So tonight our book is She Was First, The Trailblazing Life of Shirley Chisholm. All right, so thank you for joining and let's get started. Okay. She was the first, the trailblazing life of Shirley Chisholm. Shirley liked to be in charge as a young girl at home and at school. She liked to do things her way. In college, she out-talked anyone who opposed her on the debate team. After graduating, Shirley became an educator and a community activist, standing up for the rights of women and people of color. Her small stature and fiery determination often took people by surprise, but they listened. In 1964, Shirley brought her voice and leadership to politics. As the first Black woman to serve in the New York State Assembly and later as the first Black woman elected to Congress, she championed gender and racial equality, educational programs, and the needs of the poor. Then in 1972, Shirley shared her ideas with voters nationwide. She became the first Black person to seek the presidency of the United States as a major party candidate. Shirley Chisholm, a woman of many firsts, was a legendary political trailblazer whose legacy is a beacon for the diverse leaders of today. Here is her inspiring story. She was first. On a cold November day in 1924, Shirley Anita St. Hill came into this world. Back then, nobody had an inkling that she would open a door to history. Shirley, the oldest of the St. Hill girls, was a handful for her mother and papa. From the time she was little, Shirley liked to be in charge. At 3, she was already leading children twice her age around the neighborhood, telling them where to go and which games to play. "Listen to me," Shirley said, and they did. The St. Hill family lived in Brooklyn, New York. Papa was a baker's helper, and mother was a seamstress and a domestic worker. They barely owned enough money to keep food in the cupboards and supper on the table. Mother and Papa made a tough decision. They would send the girls to live with mother's family in the Caribbean island of Barbados. While the children were away, Papa and Mother would save their money, and Shirley and her sisters would get a taste of country living. In 1928, Shirley, her sisters, and her mother boarded an ocean liner named Vulcania. After 9 rocky days at sea, they arrived in Barbados. From the port, they rode a rickety bus to Grandmother Emmeline's farm. Shirley spotted her grandmother right away. The thin West Indian woman stood as tall as a reed, and she looked like serious business. I have to remember to show you the pages. Island life was nothing like city living. The days were hot as an oven, and every night Shirley heard an animal concert chirps, chucks, clucks, and moos. Her new home also had something Shirley had never seen, an outhouse. See a picture of an outhouse there. Mother stayed for a few months to make sure the girls were settled in. Then she had to go back to Brooklyn to help Papa. The day Mother left, everyone's face was wet with tears. Grandmother Emmeline's house was stocked with love, rules, chores, fetch the water well, feed the animals, graze the cows. When they finished, Shirley, her sisters, and her cousins enjoyed a special treat. They raced to the beach, ran through the sand, and jumped into the clear blue water. To Shirley, the ocean felt like warm magic. The local school was a one-room building with more than 100 children ages 4 to 11. The teachers were strict and punished students who did not behave. Shirley was a fast learner. She could read and write before she turned 5. Barbados was filled with people with brown skin like Shirley's. She saw teachers, preachers, and shopkeepers taking care of island business. Seeing them, Shirley understood that when she grew up, she could take charge and get things done too. 7 years went by. Mother and Papa were still struggling to earn money. The Great Depression of the 1930s made it hard for them to find steady jobs. But no matter, Mother wanted her girls back home. In 1934, the year Shirley turned 10, she and her sisters moved back to Brooklyn and a different life. The city was crowded with automobiles, tall buildings, fast moving people, and a confusing maze of streets. During the icicle cold winters, Shirley shivered thinking about the warm Barbados sunshine. At her new school, Shirley got a sad surprise. Instead of starting sixth grade, she was put back into the fourth grade. Shirley's schooling in Barbados had been excellent, but the teachers in Brooklyn said she didn't know enough United States history. Shirley was upset and embarrassed and bored. Sometimes when the teacher wasn't looking, Shirley threw spitballs and snapped rubber bands at the younger kids in her class. Once her teacher realized why Shirley misbehaved, the school gave her a tutor. In time, Shirley learned all the history she needed to catch up with her classmates. Education was important in the St. Hill home. The girls made regular trips to the library to borrow books. When holidays came, Shirley was sure to receive a book as a present. Every evening, the family at the family dinner table came alive. Papa talked first. Shirley listened closely and asked questions as he discussed world events. Papa read 3 newspapers every day. He was full of information. When Papa's friends stopped by, Shirley stayed up late and listened through the bedroom door. The men talked for hours about world leaders and politics. Papa said everybody should be treated the same: poor, rich, black, and white. Papa's words stirred something inside of Shirley. She started paying more attention to current events. In high school, Shirley earned top grades and was accepted to several colleges. She chose Brooklyn College, just a subway ride away from home. The school was bigger than any she had ever attended. There were so many students. Shirley loved her classes. Her brain buzzed with new information about other countries, foreign languages, and different cultures. She joined the Harriet Tubman Society, a club where she learned about Black history. And nobody was surprised when Shirley signed up for the debate team. She could outtalk anybody. After her schoolwork was done, Shirley enjoyed going to parties and dancing. Shirley wanted to use her education to make the country and the world better for everyone. But how? Her favorite teacher, Professor Warsaw, knew Shirley was a great debater. He suggested she give politics a try. Shirley had doubts. She loved children, so she decided to be a school teacher instead of a politician. She would make a difference by helping children. After she finished college in 1946, Shirley had a hard time finding a job. Most doors were closed to her because she was black and she was a woman. Plus, she was very short. Don't judge me by my size, Shirley insisted at an interview to a nursery school teacher. Give me a chance. Shirley got the job.
Mom, I'm
Andy.
frustrated. You keep wanting me to cry.
During the day, Shirley worked with children. In the evening, she worked with community groups. Shirley noticed that people with power and money didn't seem to care about folks who were poor. This bothered her. She remembered how it felt to be poor, so she spoke up and tried to make a difference for people who didn't have power or money. One time, Shirley encouraged a woman in a local group to stand up to men and demand respect. Another time, she noticed that the officials in charge of a meeting were ignoring everyone waiting in line to ask questions. Shirley rushed in front and made sure that everyone was allowed to talk. In the middle of all this work, Shirley found love. In 1949, she married Conrad Chisholm, a private investigator. He was handsome, smart, and crazy about Shirley. In the 1950s and 60s, Shirley joined many organizations. Some local leaders and politicians didn't like her ideas. They called her a troublemaker because she stood up for women and people of color. But the people who needed her help were glad Shirley was on their side, fighting to make sure they were treated fairly. By 1964, Shirley's heart told her it was time to step into politics. She had a gift. People listened when she talked. Her words motivated them to action. Shirley decided to take a chance and run for the New York State Assembly. She won. After Shirley became an assemblywoman, she worked with the people of New York. She worked to pass laws to help sick people get the medicine they needed. She worked to make sure landlords kept the heat on in the wintertime. She worked to help people find jobs and to raise pay for workers, including those who clean houses, like her mother. She worked to help the poor students pay for college. Shirley didn't say or do things just to be popular. She fought for what she believed was right, not what was easy. She followed Grandmother Emmeline's advice, always to speak the truth. 4 years later, Shirley decided to run for the United States Congress. She promised to help people all across the country. Some of the men in Congress tried to keep Shirley out. They scolded her and said that women didn't belong in politics. One of her opponents called her a little school teacher. Many people said that they would never vote for a woman. Shirley dusted off the mean talk. She kept meeting with people and asking them to vote for her. Her campaign slogan was unbought and unbossed. Shirley's hard work paid off. In 1968, she was the first Black woman elected to Congress. In the House of Representatives, Shirley kept her promise. She worked for laws that helped women, children, students, poor people, farm workers, Native people, and others who were often pushed aside. She fought for health care. She spoke up for the military veterans. She spoke out against war. While in Congress, Shirley gave many speeches, and people of every color and background liked her ideas for change. But Shirley wanted to take her message to an even bigger audience. So in 1972, she decided to seek the highest political office in the United States. Shirley was the first Black person, Democrat or Republican, to run for president. Shirley's campaign was full of ups and downs. Although many people helped her and followed the Chisholm Trail, their support wasn't enough. Shirley didn't win the nomination, but her work paved the way for the future, for the first Black president of the United States and one day the first woman president. Shirley Anita St. Hill Chisholm opened a door to history. So that was the end of the actual story. I'm going to read a little bit more about Shirley Anita St. Hill. Turn this way towards the light. Shirley Anita St. Hill was born on November 30th, 1924 in Brooklyn, New York. Her parents, Charles St. Hill and Ruby Seal St. Hill, immigrated to the United States from Barbados. Shirley's mother was a religious woman. She took her daughters to church 3 times every Sunday. Shirley's father, a voracious reader and devoted follower of the Black nationalist leader Marcus Garvey, passed along his love for politics, race relations, and history to Shirley. With the goal of saving money and exposing her children to the Caribbean life, the St. Hills sent them to live for a time in Barbados. The 3 girls, Shirley, age 3, Odessa, age 2, and Muriel, 8 months, stayed with their maternal grandmother, Emmeline Seal. They lived on her farm from 1928 to 1934. Describing life at her grandmother's house, Shirley said, "The furniture was sparse and plain, but we found grandmother's house elaborately furnished with 2 necessities, warmth and love." Shirley's education in Barbados British-style schools was traditional and strict, and it gave Shirley a solid foundation in speaking and writing. Punishment, however, could be severe, and the teachers sometimes flogged the children, including Shirley, for not paying attention in class. In March 1934, when the girls returned to Brooklyn, Shirley discovered that she had a new little sister, Selma. The family's economic fortunes had not improved, the Great Depression had taken hold, and Shirley saw her parents struggle to make ends meet. Shirley excelled in school. In high school, she studied French and won an achievement award. She was also elected president of the Junior Arista Club and Honor Society. She received several college scholarships and had her heart set on attending Vassar College in upstate New York or Oberlin College in Ohio. However, Shirley's parents made it clear that they could not afford the room and the board expenses at those schools. So Shirley stayed at home and attended Brooklyn College. She majored in sociology and minored in Spanish. She joined the Harriet Tubman Society, where members had discussions about Black racial consciousness and racism in American society. During this time, Shirley became concerned about issues surrounding discrimination in hiring, working conditions, pay, and advancement opportunities for Blacks and women. She was also active in the debate team. Her star matches drew the attention of Louis Warsaw, a blind white political science professor. He strongly encouraged Shirley to pursue politics. In 1964, Shirley graduated from college cum laude. Teaching was one of the few professional doors open to young Black women at the time. Shirley loved children and felt she could be of service to society by pursuing a career in education. Her first job was a nursery school teacher at Mount Calvary Child Care Center in Harlem. She also earned a master's degree in curriculum and teaching from Teachers College and Columbia University in 1951, and later became director of the Child Care Center in Hamilton Madison House on Manhattan's Lower East Side. From 1959 to 1964, she served as consultant to the New York City Division of Daycare. During her time as an educator, Shirley Chisholm also maintained an active political agenda. She joined the New York State 17th Assembly District Democratic Club, a local political club, and was involved in numerous groups that addressed community concerns, including the National Association for Advancement of Colored People, the NAACP, and the Urban League. Beyond being a founding member of several organizations, including the National Organization for Women and the Congressional Black Caucus, Chisholm was a woman of many other firsts. In 1964, she was the first Black woman elected to the New York State Assembly. In 1968, she was the first Black woman to be elected to the United States Congress. She held her seat in the House of Representatives for 7 terms, 14 years. In 1972, she was the first Black candidate from a major political party to run for the United States presidency. At the same time, she was the first woman and first Black person in the Democratic Party to seek that office. Chisholm received more than 430,000 votes in the primary and earned 152 delegates. Chisholm's run for political office were not easy. She was a no-nonsense politician. Her small stature combined with her fiery and dynamic presentation often surprised people. She had a multicultural coalition of supporters and fans around the world. She worked to increase spending for education and health care. However, as a Black woman, Chisholm encountered both anti-woman and anti-Black backlash. Some Black men did not support her because she was a woman. Many people thought a Black man should be the first person of color to run for the presidency. White male politicians expected Chisholm to step aside. They questioned her womanhood and her race loyalty. Although these criticisms stung, Chisholm refused to be placed in a box. She was a political trailblazer who said, "I am the candidate for the people," who dared to be a catalyst of change. In 1983, Chisholm retired from Congress. She co-founded the National Congress of Black Women in 1984 and supported Reverend Jesse Jackson's presidential campaigns in 1984 and in 1988. She was a popular speaker on the lecture circuit and taught at Mount Holyoke College. Another part of her work was to document her personal story. She wrote 2 books, Unbought and Unbossed in 1970 and The Good Fight in 1973. She was a mentor to many up-and-coming Black women politicians, and most notably Congress Barbara Lee, a Democrat from California. Chisholm also served as a role model for many other politicians across race and gender lines. Shirley was married to Conrad Chisholm from 1949 to 1977. Following their divorce, she married Arthur Hardwick later that year. They were married until his death in 1986. On January 1st, 2005, Shirley Anita Hill Chisholm passed away in Ormond Beach, Florida. Chisholm alma mater, Brooklyn College, is home to the Shirley Chisholm Project, dedicated to bringing her life and legacy to the general public. The project also hosts an annual Shirley Chisholm Day on November 30th, her birthday. In 2014, Chisholm was honored with the United States postage stamp, and in 2015, she was posthumously awarded the Presidential Medal of Freedom by President Barack Obama, the first Black president of the United States. In 2019, Shirley Chisholm State Park opened in Brooklyn, and in 2020, a statue of Chisholm was erected at an entrance to Brooklyn Prospect Park. It is one of only few statues in New York City that honors a woman or person of color. And that is our read for today. She was the first, The Trailblazing Life of Shirley Chisholm, and that was written by Catherine Russell Brown and Eric Velasquez. So that is the book for today. That was day 6 reading. Thank you so much for joining and watching, and I hope that you enjoyed this book. Tomorrow, day 7, we will be reading Malcolm Little. Okay, the boy who grew up to become Malcolm X. So Malcolm Little, the boy who became Malcolm X. So join us tomorrow at 5:30. Malia actually will be back tomorrow, so it'll be 2 of us tomorrow. But thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you again tomorrow. Thank you. Bye-bye.